remember during Hurricane Florence, I brought down those FEMA boys, and you took us for a tour.
Yeah.
That was a good time. Those guys, that was their first time. We talked about it later. I can't remember that guy's name, the lead guy. But he said that was the first time that they've gotten somewhere early enough to tour the area before the destruction.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was nice.
Where were they from? I'm trying to remember.
Indiana.
Yep.
Indiana Task Force 1.
Task Force 1, yep.
That's correct. Yeah, great group.
Yeah, they were stand-up.
Mm-hmm.
That was the, I think I've talked about it before on the show, but that was the first, actual, they painted such a good picture of what a task force going to another place to provide a service is. Because the guys, when they were at 17, dude, they weren't out working, the other guys that were just at 17, making coffee, mopping floors, cleaning bathrooms, 24/7, round the clock.
Yep.
And I was like, what are y'all doing right now? Like, we got people for that. And they're like, nope. We are the people for that.
Yeah.
It's like, huh. But, I mean, in TFL class, and Craig, he's big on this, is when you're sent to another fire district or to another area to help out, that help is not limited to, well, in my world, it's water rescue. They're not limited to water rescue. It's whatever they need. If they need you to wash the damn trucks when they get back, that's what you do. And they set a great example of that. Great example.
Yeah. How was it from your side when we showed up down there, like meeting those boys? Was that like a wanted service or?
Yeah, no, we definitely had requested those guys. And, what's ironic is being deployed several times myself. I know exactly what you're talking about. When you go into somebody else's station, you want to earn that keep, right?
Mm-hmm. And
when those guys rolled in, when they met with us, it was the red carpet. What do we need to do? What do you need? It was, it's exactly what we thought a deployment would look like. So
yeah,
and with that deployment there, we had requested a Swiftwater team, and at the time didn't care where it come from.
Right.
And what was beautiful about it was they brought that group into the airport and then spread them out, which was pretty smart. To take a big team and break them up and send them out instead of you get a type 3 team, you get this, you get that. So it was just it was a good scenario.
Yeah, they busted into 4 squads.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. That night that everything went down at the north side of the county.
Yeah, where we thought it was going to flood, it didn't.
I know.
Yeah,
that's how it goes.
Weird.
How it goes.
It redrew some of our maps as far as the north side, the flood areas. They had to remap a bunch of that stuff.
Yeah, that was a wild. I guess probably total it was about 36 hours, close to it. But that was a wild time, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And no, we thought we were going to get this crazy storm surge, and we didn't get it. But all the little small rivers and creeks just swelled dramatically. So pretty cool.
It's a perfect example of what what residential areas do as far as drainage goes and water goes, and there's just going to be more of it in our future.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, as the footprint here in Wilmington gets bigger, it's just going to become more of a problem because concrete doesn't absorb water, so all that's going away.
Yep.
Wildness.
Yeah.
Wildness.
I learned a lot during that whole 2-week span.
Sure.
Yeah, it was quite the experience.
Yeah, they put those little aluminum boats on top of those deuce and a halves with the National Guard, and buddy, they were doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. That was awesome. Yep. Castle Hayne was like an island. Yeah, we went through one time to get some people out.
Sure.
And that National Guard truck, the water was up on the windshield.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you were back there on off of Torchwood, and you had asked me and Ben several times to go down the road, and I was like, bro, we cannot do it.
Yeah.
We cannot do it.
Need boat.
Yeah. I was like, can't do it. And National Guard come bebopping through there, and you watch the headlights disappear, and then they just pop back up out of nowhere. And it's like, what? Yeah. But that's the Army. They can do stuff like that.
Yeah. I enjoyed those guys that showed up that had the big trucks. You expect a certain amount of pride when you deal with any sort of military branch, right? And they came in and shook hands, and like you were saying, they just wanted to earn their keep. Like, how can we help this process go? It was nice.
Yeah, it's a good example. Chief Griffin, it's a pleasure to have you on the show this evening.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me.
We got into some good talk at dinner for sure. I was glad we had the opportunity to do dinner. A lot of some of our guests we don't get to do dinner. I enjoy that part. Kind of the common conversation at dinner. It makes the kind of the break in and start to the show. It's not like strangers.
Yeah.
Of course, we're not strangers with you anyway, so it doesn't count.
Good icebreaker.
Yeah, it doesn't count with you. Where what's going on in your world?
Oh man, it's we talked about it at dinner. We're coming out of the summer months, so the island's slowing down a little bit, which is good for us. And it's for me on my side. I do with the first do tactic stuff, and this is through the winter months is when I get to do a little bit of traveling and teaching and enjoying it, and so it's been good.
How long have you been the chief at Carolina Beach?
So about 9.5 years now.
Shoo.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So excited to still be there. It's a good little island. It's small. It's what I like. I like my single station and sit out at lunch and eat lunch with the guys and just shoot the breeze every day. That's kind of what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I said, well, if I'm not going to be a guy on the engine and I'm going to be a chief, I want to be a chief of a 1-2 station department where everybody knows everybody and eat lunch together and hang out.
I like your style. Yeah,
for sure.
Your new building is nice.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, we're proud of it.
Yeah, man, it looks great. It looks functional. It's top notch.
Yeah. We the building's been added on to 3 or 4 times over the years, and it was Fiddle Point Fire previously, and then when the town took it over, they added off a kitchen and training room off to one side, and then we were able to extend the bays off the other end and get us not responding off of Dow Road and responding on to Cape Fear, which is 55 mile an hour in the past, now 45 down to a 35 zone. So that's huge to the guys to be able to get out the door and go. So
yeah, it's not playing level 6 on Frogger.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So yeah, unfortunately we're like a city block long, but a lot of doors run through to get to the bay. But it's definitely what they needed because the building had from the 70s had really got run down.
Where were you previous to Carolina Beach? Because 9 years, obviously, you worked somewhere before then.
Yeah.
What's the path coming up to Carolina Beach?
So I guess we'll start in the beginning, but
it's a great place to start.
There you go. I started out volunteering for Seagrove Fire, just a small rural volunteer fire department, and really loved it. And the chief was just an awesome guy, and he pointed me in the direction of Fayetteville Fire Academy, which was at the time a regional fire academy, one of the few regional fire academies in the past. It would take you 2-3 years to get certified. And when he set me up with that, I called down there and talked to the guy running the academy, and he said Spring Lake Fire has a resident program, so you can live there while you do the academy, and all they ask is you run calls with them. And if you don't know much about Spring Lake, it was a good experience. So run a lot of fires and a lot of medicals during my little tenure there, and come out of there and got hired at Pinehurst Fire. And so I did right at 10 years with Pinehurst Fire, where I made it up to the rank of lieutenant, which is a captain there now. Lieutenants was in charge of the engine, and so made it up to that and did a small little stint at Harris Nuclear Plant, where I was in charge of all their emergency services, the fire protection program. So I did that for a couple of years, and I realized corporate world wasn't me.
Right. So
the county I grew up in, which is Montgomery County, they were merging all the emergency services under one umbrella, 911, and then of course fire marshal, emergency management, actually GIS and addressing. It was a whole merger. And they asked, I met with them, and they asked me to come in and take over that whole process. So I did that for 5 years and managed the 911 center, emergency management. There was 10 fire departments, and I was kind of their liaison to the county and managed the budget side of it and helped them, get engines and radios and whatever they needed that was capital type items. And during that tenure, and I'll back up and say, when I left Seagrove, went to Pinehurst, I volunteered at Seven Lakes. I was assistant chief there when I left, and everywhere I've been, I've always been a volunteer fireman. Like that was my dream and loved. Now, when I come out of emergency service director, I was a chief at Bisco. I was emergency service director for the county, and I come to Carolina Beach, and fortunately, I live in the town that I work at, so I can't volunteer there. But the good thing is I can walk out my back door and get in the car and probably beat the engine the most calls. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds.
Right.
So I got just an amazing staff there. When I came there, we were, more volunteer than we were paid, and the guys were only 12 hours a day. And, we managed to bring that up over 9 years now, 9.5. We're running 4 on an engine 24 hours a day, and most time there's 5 when we backstaff with volunteers and whatever. So, it's been a fun ride so far. I'm 28 years in the fire service altogether, and I look back and I always said, like, I don't want to lose touch of that little small town, and that's where I spent my career. Pinehurst was 2 stations. Bisco's obviously municipal fire, but we had county district, and we were a small department, and I had the honor to be chief there for a little while, and it's kind of where I enjoy. So some people like big cities, and and there's tons of bonuses there. I got so many friends in big cities, and I'm actually envious of them sometimes. And
Right.
then I go, I look at my little town, and we're 7,000-8,000 people in the off season and 30-some thousand in the summer, and 1 engine, and we get really busy and run our butts off, so it's good. So
Yeah, I hear your engine go out all the time.
yeah, those guys, they do a good. I tell you what, I tell those guys, I say, man, it's, you guys don't realize sometimes we feel understaffed and limited manpower, but we've got the best relationship with Curry Beach, amazing relationship with Engine 19 over in the county, and us 3 come together within minutes, and you can't beat it, and when it gets one of those big calls, I mean, we start getting 18 and 7 and from the city, and those guys coming in, and every time they come in, everybody's just like one big family, and we just work together. So I love it.
Well, I'll tell you, from the stint that I spent down there, because I was at 19, 2000, maybe late 2008 into 2009. You weren't there yet. But that relationship that you're speaking of between county and city and all that wasn't so much. Myself and, my captain was Blake Turner. We had a great relationship with the Carolina Beach guys. But now when it got into Curry Beach, it was almost like a territorial battle, all the time. It was almost like a biker gang. You don't come on our turf, and we don't come on your. Of course, 19's district was weird back then because, you had to go through your district and Curry Beach to get to the far end of our district. It never really made sense to me, but that's the way it was. But I'm very happy that the relationship has kind of generated, and I think you probably had a lot to do with that.
Well, and it's ironic because one good thing was me coming from the outside, so and working with numerous departments in the past. So for me to come in, it just made sense. And the relationship with 19's always been great. Curry Beach is, we viewed each other as we're a beach town, and we were really tight. And and then in the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 years, whatever, Chief Kennedy took over, and he's just doing a great job. And such energy he's bringing that department. And me and him was just down the other day, and we were sitting on the whiteboard just writing out some strategic things. And he's like, well, my guys come to you. What do you want? And I like, here's what I want. Here's what you want. And we were just hashing it out. And it just makes a huge – and the guys see that. They really do. And, my captains text me all the time. They're like, hey, we're going to have 19 or 1,100 over for breakfast or lunch or whatever, or we're going to go over their station. I'm like, go, You're only a mile or 2 out of your district. Go eat breakfast, you guys, because that's training you can't buy. I can send them a training ground, but you break bread together and it makes a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so. we definitely get behind that for sure. That kitchen table atmosphere, man, where rank doesn't matter, status doesn't matter, none of that matters. It's just It's just one big family. So it's great.
So much trust gets built in that setting, and I can't describe. I don't know the nuts and bolts of it, but it happens at the table.
You're right. You're right.
And the training ground.
You're right. Yeah. You kind of brought yourself into a segue there, and you're talking about the guys. The guys saw and they see what you and the Chief of Curie Beach are doing. What can you put a brand on that type of leadership? Because I mean, they see it. I know you're a leadership guy, big time, which we're going to get into that for sure. Mm-hmm. But what is that? I mean, is that something that you learned from your early days? Did you get to see the kind of the model of the type of leader that you wanted to be or you wanted to aspire to be? A lot of us have those common figures, in our upbringing through the service. And you're like, yeah, kind of want to be like that dude. And then you have the other ones that you're like, I don't want to be like that dude. So, was there somebody like that in your upbringing through all this?
It's I tell people I learned more from my bad leadership than I ever did my good leadership, because when things were smooth on the engine, you didn't learn much. I mean, you did, but you didn't. Like, everybody got along. There was no trials and tribulations, but I learned a lot from sometimes bad leadership, and I say that loosely. I don't mean it disrespectful for anybody I ever worked for, but you obviously learned how you didn't want to be treated, and my whole career, my whole life's been training, and I got my fire instructor back in '98, somewhere in there, and I've just always been attuned to the training side, and I've always gone and taught weekend schools, and now it's kind of branched out and got a little further into doing other stuff. But I think it keeps me grounded, because I go out and I hear other departments and what they're doing, and I go train, and I tell people, you prepare for a class and then you go teach at a fire department, and you leave there and go, man, my guys should be doing that. They should be doing this, and why are we not? And you learn so much, and so I think what keeps me grounded is that I keep my boots on the ground, and I don't regret the day that I left the engine. I do tell my guys all the time, the best job in the world is that engine company captain, because no disrespect, but you come in, you do what you got to do 24 hours, and the wheels can fall off the wagon. You go home, it's somebody else's problem.
Right.
And then you come back in, you make it the best you can make it, and then you go home. And when I made, chief and some other, and charge of a whole county, I realized quickly, like, you don't go home. The phone never quits ringing. And so it does suck some of that fun out of the job. So how I've reattached to that is through training and responding with the guys. And, I tell them sometimes I'm probably too hands-on, but they enjoy it. And, I don't get in their way, other than I get there. But if I pull up and things are going smooth, I'll throw a pack on and get inside, or jump on a roof or do what I got to do. So, because I'm like, man, it's like Candyland at that point. So, I think that's what keeps me grounded the most. And I think the staff likes it, for the most part. I don't want to speak for them. Sometimes they may think I'm too involved, and I've tried to, that's probably one of my everybody says, what's your weaknesses and what's your strengths? My weaknesses, I probably get too hands-on, because the guys will tell me something's broke, and I'll go grab a creeper from the thing and slide under the engine. I'm under trying to see if I can figure it out myself, and
right.
They're like, call somebody, But it's how I stay grounded, though. It really is. They don't realize it, but it's kind of like my playtime, gets me out of the office.
From the street level, we love it. Yeah. To see any chief get in and get dirty, be in there doing some work. Man, I love it.
Yeah, there's something about the white helmet that's got soot on it. Mm-hmm. There's just something about the optic of which that's viewed. It's just I don't know. It's hard to replicate, because to me, what goes on behind closed doors in your meetings with the county or your meetings with the city, Carolina Beach and whatnot, the stuff that the guys don't see, it's very important. Hands down, no doubt, it's got to happen. But that's the thing. They don't see that. So they don't know. But the fact that you're out and present, especially training and stuff like that, I'm a seeing person. And I think that's probably amongst the service. We're probably mostly kind of seeing guys, and to see that our leadership figure out there doing the same things that we do, that means a lot. Do you believe that that's harder to do as the department gets bigger? Does the chief's overlying responsibilities just grow as the department does?
Yeah, and as the department's grown, I've seen that my role is a little different, right? So when it comes to day-to-day ops, I can't hang out in the bay and drink coffee and, town hall wants me over there, or this meeting wants me here, and I'm on some of the committees that make no sense, for the town, but I'm on the committees, and the town said, hey, represent us, so it's I realize that those are my day-to-day activities, and I think, I always default back to just not my training, but just, keeping my live burn stuff going. We talked about that at dinner, and to go do 2 or 3 burns a year, whether it's a burn building or whether it's a acquired structure, it not only keeps me grounded, but it reminds me what the staff's going through inside that house. So when I'm making decisions and I tell them to keep pushing, I want them to understand I know what I see what you're going through, and if I'm telling you to push, I know why I'm telling you to push. And if I say it's time to back out, I hope they understand I knew that it wasn't the right environment. We're going to have to reset and try again, and that's all. I think my biggest concern is that my staff don't ever feel like I've lost that touch, because we've all heard this. The best fireman makes a good driver. The best driver makes a good officer, and you can't make decisions on as a fireman. To be a good driver, you got to understand what that fireman is getting beat up on inside. And to be a good officer, you got to understand what the driver's going through and what the fireman's going through. And, to be a good chief, you got to know what everybody's going through and work all those circles around the fire ground. And so that's why I try to, when I go out these live burns, I like to say, oh man, it's 2 bottles, I'm deep, and it's I'm whooped. So when I'm asking my guys to perform, I got to appreciate that they're done, and not be that guy that over pushes them, and not be the guy to under push them. So, and I don't know, at some point in my career, I'll lose touch of that, I'm sure. But, I think that's what my, going to these classes and doing burns and talking to other students and working with guys like you guys on the burns. We're talking about the one we did on Cape Fear Boulevard. We see big houses, and we saw how they burn different than little houses, and that's what makes you a good fireground commander all day long. So.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I was just about to ask you, do you think that's a key aspect of our fireground command that's being lost? It's kind of being a disconnect in general. I'm obviously it doesn't apply to you. But
yeah, no, it does. It applies to me too. No, I tell you, I've said this before. We're blue collar trades. And there is an aspect that trying to think how to say this right, the correct way. But there was a point there I felt like we were losing that in the fire service, and so I feel like people got promoted way too fast, and and I'm young. I feel like I'm a young chief, but I never lost touch with the fireground, and I feel like, and nothing aggravates me more, and I say this, and I probably shouldn't say it on a recorded deal, but nothing irks me more to go do a live burn, and I got a captain of 15, 20 years, whatever, 30 years, whatever he is, and her, and she goes, hey, I've had my time on there. Let these guys get it. This is your time, because this is the time that you're not on the knob. You're back. You're not. You shouldn't be on the front line now. You should be watching what's going on in the building. So when I hear people say that, it aggravates me, and I look at it and go, that's what the fire service has lost over the last several years, is we promoted people way too fast, whether it was they got a degree or they had the luxury of taking unlimited fire classes, and all of a sudden we promote them because they got a lot of stuff on paper, but then we look up and what have they done on the line? And in our fire service, it's tough, especially my end. We don't catch fires daily, weekly, whatever. So how do I judge an officer? I got to make them have training. So I have to look at training, but I take our few fires we have and say, is this somebody I would want leading our crew? And that's where I think the fire service in the last several years have lost their touch. You know, I think we've went into credentialing more than, you know, within what, you know, when I got in, most of these guys were farmers, landscapers, all these guys did stuff. And now you see we hire somebody that's got a bachelor's or a master's degree, not meaning that ugly, but they come in and they've never did a blue-collar job. And then when you ask them to go, you know, bang on the side of the starter, see we get the engine cranked so we can get it shot, they don't know what you're talking about. So
Right.
that's, I don't know, that's probably more than I should have said, but it is.
Dude, I think you're spot on.
Yeah.
I think you're spot on. Knowledge without experience is just an idea.
Yep.
That's all it is. Our brother Steve Robertson, he says it the best, and when he talks about vetting the what's he say specifically? He talks about vetting the instructor, but he talks about vetting the curriculum that's being presented in front of you, because there's a lot of people nowadays, especially with the internet and all that are presenting all these things, and it's our job to vet it, to see if it makes sense, or to see if it's credible, because I mean, unfortunately we do have those folks that just they have all the knowledge in the world, but they just don't have the experience.
No, and unfortunately, you know, it's my experience, and you know, me and Steve are good friends, Steve Robinson, and we've had this conversation several times over different scenarios, and Todd Edwards, a good friend of mine, we all had this conversation, and you know, it's funny because it's almost like sometimes you get so much knowledge that you forget what you came from, or you forget how aggressive that the fire service has to be. And I think in today's world, with the modern day building construction and the way fires are burning, that we forget we got to default aggressive, or we're actually gonna get guys hurt. We're gonna get our crews hurt. And I preach that a lot, and some people don't like it, and some do. Some might give me let's go get it, and don't do it. But I think it's more important than it was when I came to fire service. You know, I come up in an aggressive department, and we were told to push, and I look at today's society and the modern building construction, and I think it's more important that we make that initial push hard. And when we don't make that initial push hard, we end up surrounding and drowning. But when I watch us put guys in the building, pull them out, put them in the building, pull them out, put them in the building, we're really setting firemen up to get hurt bad. Where you just, you know, it's the fire service that we're in today. I think that some of these leaders today haven't experienced some of that aggressive firefighting, and then some of them have, but maybe they had a bad experience with it. And then what you said is their lack of experience. And, you know, if you go to nothing but fire classes, they'll tell you how you're going to get hurt, right? I mean, that's
right.
What they're going to do is tell you how you'll die in this job. And what I try to do, and what I think a lot of these guys are trying to do, is we just preach the truth and say you get hurt when you don't understand what's going on around you. So you can be aggressive, you can be overly aggressive, you can default to what your knowledge has told you, and keeping up with just building construction and where we're at today. It's scary, the fire service we in, because it's not the fire service I started in, where we had 10, 15 minutes to play with a fire. We could go in, back out, push in, do this. An old farmhouse, you know, it's breathing well. You know, we'd see it in live burns. They burn totally different. And we're pulling up data, they're blowing through the roof. And
in 10 minutes.
Yeah,
Yes.
so it's I don't even want to know what the fire service looked like in 10, 15 years for these guys.
Yeah, it's wild, especially since there's folks like you and Steve, like we just mentioned, and Ray, McCormick, and those guys. I mean, how long are they going to keep spreading this knowledge before, you know, it's not something that's around anymore? Who's there to take up these reins?
Yeah, no, it's you know, I don't know, it may be a good segue to first due tactics. I don't know, but it's the 1,000% why I started what I do with first due tactics. It wasn't to, you know, it started out as I was going and teaching first due engine company stuff at a couple of weekend schools, and departments kept saying, well, you come here and do this, come do this. And that's kind of what the foundation was. But I'll be honest, I was watching a fire service transition. I was kind of in that phase 5-6 years ago, like, okay, I should be laying back and letting some of these younger guys that just take it and run with it. And not that they wasn't, don't take that wrong. But I also saw a message changing that was scary. And I saw a culture of the fire service changing, and I didn't like it. And I said, if I got any mark I can leave is till the day I walk out the door, I'm going to push that message that we don't need to default back from the roots of what we do. And that's kind of where First Do Tactics started from. And it was 100% inspired from guys like Steve and Todd Edwards and Kirk Ice and all those guys. It was inspired from seeing their message and saying, man, they're pushing this message here, and here, but what's North Carolina getting? Right. And I need to push that message, and people's going to hate me, people's going to love me, and, it don't matter. I retire, and I'll go enjoy my life when I'm done, but till I get to that point, I want to push this message and try to grab a young generation of firemen, and we're seeing it. Actually, we're seeing a little transition. I don't know if you noticed, I think some of the newer guys coming on are hearing these messages from people like Steve and Todd and, Kurt and all those, and they're hearing it, and they're wanting to grasp it and run with it. So make firefighting cool again,
Right. Yeah, that you were saying that making that aggressive push early, to prevent this thing from growing, and those breakfast sessions and lunch sessions, as a company officer, I feel more comfortable making a good push if I know the crew that's coming from 19 or coming from 18, wherever they are. If you have a relationship, then you feel confident, and confidence is part of that whole game. If you don't even have a relationship with the crew down the street, then maybe you think differently. Do you know Joey Horrell?
I know the name.
Yeah, he drives our engine 13.
Okay.
We were having a conversation last night about where your decision making is coming from. So if you're just trying to put the customer first, like if a house is on fire, you're there to save lives, put the fire out, right? Life and property, and pride gets in the way. And then some of these that change you were talking about, the safety first and not making that push, some of that stuff was catching on. It was scary, man. It felt like we were going to lose public trust, and we're burning down houses. It's nice to see this mainstream First Do Tactics style. Like, let's get in there. Let's build relationships and go put a fire out.
Yeah, no, it's it's almost scary that we talk about modern day building construction, how fast things are burning, and when I do a lot of my First Do Tactics classes, first thing I try to do is talk about what's your weapons, what's your weapon package, what's your hose packages, because yes, we used to have a lot of time to play with a fire back in the day, and we could, and we didn't. The BTUs wasn't near what they are. We all hear all these stories, but fire departments talk about that, and then they don't change their tack packages, and now we're our first in engine, we're pulling. A smooth bore line, we're flowing 185 gallons a minute, and if you make the push, you're going to put fire out. You can put a lot of fire out. And, doing these live burns is what's teaching these guys. They're like, man, we are killing fire. And just get in there and put the fire out, and your safety ends. Life safety takes precedence because, obviously if you got a known life hazard and Miss Smith's hanging out the window like we all talk about, you know what you got. But when you just pull up and fire's coming out of a couple windows, sometimes putting a fire out's the best way to save lives. And on your way in, you're making those searches, or you're going to find things. But sometimes we pull up and we go, well, we don't know if anybody's in there. Let's maybe not put guys in, or let's don't do this. And I'm not just talking about New Hanover County in general, not the county. I'm talking about the beaches and all that. I'm not talking about our area. I'm talking about nationwide.
Sure.
It's a push.
Yeah. And
so sometimes you talk that message, everybody's like, oh, man, is your department like that or what? Like, no, this is what's happening in the nation. And we read articles, and you read articles about instructors talking about interior fire attack may be a thing in the past. Like, well, these people don't be even allowed to publish stuff.
Right.
Because I can tell you that the citizens expect In 2021, the citizens expect the same thing they got in 1981, 1991.
Right.
You know, they expect the same thing. They want you to save them, and if they're safe, they want their property saved.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't think property don't matter, ask somebody whose house been on fire. You know.
Yeah.
And it's near and dear to me because as a chief, I think some of the biggest heartstrings I've had is, you know, people coming up to me and they go, I don't care what happens. There's just my grandmother's picture or my birth certificates, or, you know, I got a box in that office in there and it's got everything on a jump drive, my whole life's. And when we bring that box out to see their face and see how they act, if you don't think property matters, you hadn't had your house on fire.
Yeah.
And so if we can stop everything but one room from burning down, I about bet you there's something in that room those people wanted you to save.
That's every fire I've ever been in.
Yep.
Every fire I've ever been in, there's always, the homeowner is always concerned about something in the house. And it's my duty to give whatever item that may be the best opportunity to give it back to them. You know, I'm sure as a chief, and I've hung around on fire scenes after the fact long enough that, and most of us have, is when, you know, things are settled down, the fire marshal's doing his thing, his investigation, all that good stuff. They're asking for things, or when can I go back in? When can I go back in? I want to get something out of this room or that room.
Yeah, top drawer, bottom drawer,
something.
whatever.
It's specific to them, and that's irreplaceable. And, you know, I feel it's my duty to give that thing its best opportunity to get back to them because it's irreplaceable.
Right.
So,
right.
I heard a guy say one time that it's not bravery that takes us to each call. When you signed up, when you decided, hey, I'm going to be a fireman, that was your brave moment. Now it's skill set. Now the bravery's done. You've already flown that flag. Hey, I did the brave thing. Now it's skill set. Practice. Show up with your arsenal, your weapons, and put your skills to work. Don't worry about why we're here or any of the other stuff. Take all the cloud away, and it's just go to work. Put your skills to work.
Yeah, that's very well said. Yeah. Do you see departments being stagnant when it comes to training? Kind of just like you said with your first two tactics and the engine company side of things, approaching, just looking through the optic of hose lines and how the hoses are laid out on your truck. I mean, to me, that could change based on how the neighborhoods are being laid out nowadays. It's not the same anymore. You know, we got houses all over the damn place, and it's not the same. We're not making 200 or 300 feet pushes anymore. They're all completely different now. You can catch every house with 140, 150 foot load. Why do we got a 250 one, or why are they all 200? Things like that. Do you see us just getting kind of stuck and stagnant with just the old stuff, or? No,
I tell you, I noticed about 5 or 10 years ago, I would say 5, I was really worried about the fire service because honestly, as more departments became paid, you actually saw training kind of dropping off because these guys felt like, hey, I got my firefighter 1 and 2, I got my EMT, I'm hired, we got to check the truck, we got to wash the truck, we got to do daily duties. But I started seeing that, and honestly, in the last 5 years, the best thing that's happened has been social media, and it's the worst thing that happened, but that's a whole other story. But the best thing that's happened has been social media because people were posting this, and then they start talking about, daily stretches, weekly stretches, monthly stretches, whatever your department's doing. And we actually saw departments starting to get back into training, and it was just doing basic stuff because we got away from the basic skills. And at the end of the day, you're 100% right. If you want to be a safe fire department, have motor skills. Have skills that are natural to you. If pulling that line and getting it to the second, third, fourth floor is natural to a degree to you, then that's the safest way I can feel as a fire chief. If I see crews come off the engine and things are going smooth, I'm comfortable. When it looks like Barnum and Bailey just went crazy, I get uncomfortable. Right. And when I get uncomfortable, I may have to make some less aggressive decisions. But if you want to be a safe department, and this is one thing that we preach in a lot of our classes, the best way you can be a safe department is train your guys to be warriors and get in there and put fires out. Because if, we've heard other instructors say this, if we didn't have, you take our military, if we wasn't aggressive military, we'd be speaking a foreign language right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if we're not aggressive fire department, then our citizens are going to see that. And what they're going to see is that, they don't have an option to call, another fire department. They can't dial up and say, what, I don't want Carolina Beach. I'll take New Hanover County. They don't get that option. What, I hear Castle Haynes is a good department. I'm going to call them.
Right.
They don't get that option. They get who they get. And we owe it to them to give them the best service that we can, 100%.
I agree.
That's been my message, and what I've preached from day one in my first due classes is, I hate to put a percentage, 75, 80% of this job's heart. It's 100% heart. If you got the heart and the passion, you won't quit pushing, and you'll keep going, and fires will go out. And that little 10, 20% is really just knowledge and skill. And some people say, no, it's opposite. No, if your heart's there, you'll know skill. If we talked about hunting earlier, and if you love to hunt, you'll be a good hunter. If you love to fish, you'll be a good fisherman. If you love fighting fire, you'll be a good fireman.
Mm-hmm.
But if you come into work and go, I just hear another 24 and I'm going home, or it ain't my fire, it ain't my problem, I'll get there when I can, then you're going to suck as a fireman, just plain and simple.
Yeah, natural talent is a beautiful thing, but somebody wanting to be good, I'll take that guy.
Yeah. We can teach talent.
That's right.
All day long. We can teach somebody to be a fireman. Yep. And I can't teach you to have a heart. That's the thing. And sometimes that's a lost cause. But, I can't teach you to have a heart for this job. I can teach you to be the best fireman there ever was if you'll stick with me or a lot of these other instructors and do the burns and get in there. You'll learn it. That's the easy part. But to make you have a passion for it is, you might just be in the wrong profession.
Yeah. That doesn't get said enough.
Yeah. It's hard for folks. I guess it's hard for folks who don't have the heart to kind of comprehend that. Does that make sense? I mean, how many questions have you fielded about why do you keep going to these live burns? You're not getting paid to go do it. You're not doing, I get them all the time, almost every burn.
Mm-hmm.
It's, why do you travel so far out of the way, just to go burn a house? I mean, you might get that at work. I'm like, cause I love it.
Yeah.
And it's a learning opportunity.
And it's valuable.
Exposure, man.
That's safety.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how you breed safety, like you're talking about, is to have that skill set.
But and don't mean this in any disrespectful way, but the same person that says that will go spend a whole Saturday fishing, or a whole Saturday hunting, or whatever their passion is.
Right.
So obviously their passion is not the love of this job. They might love it and they might come to work and go home, but you're right. I mean, I probably, before I got my live burn instructor, I never got paid a dime to go do all these burns I did, and I jumped in with some of the best instructors around, and they taught me so much. And when I got, finally got my live burn instructor and I'm doing it, you get nickels on the dime from the college, and it offsets your gas and what you're doing. But I'd go today for free, Yeah. And I have. I mean, I've done some 2 or 3 charity conferences. They're doing some fundraisers and say, hey, you come in and work the burn building all day. I do 8 hours in burn building, and they cover my hotel and a couple meals, And I'm like, I do it because I love it. To me, I'll take vacation to go do that. That's like, you want a cruise or a live burn? I'll take a live burn.
Yeah, there's no doubt. If a few certain individuals walked into this studio right now, I was like, hey guys, we're gonna go burn a house, I'd shut this bitch down right now.
Yeah, gotta go. Yeah,
I'd be like, Chief Griffin, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
I'll see you. We'll try to get this rescheduled.
You wouldn't see me, I'd be with you.
that's right. Yeah, yeah.
It's been fun, but yeah. Anyway, man, it's crazy how those folks that ask those questions, it just seems like they're in the fire service because when the downtime is down, it's easy. The job is easy, and you can be lazy doing this job. If you allow that if you're a company officer and you allow that of your crews, or if you're a chief and you allow that of your departments, you can get lazy doing this. Very, very lazy. I've had some not so aggressive towards training, towards anything, officers in the past, and they're very limited. But yeah, it's easy to get lazy, especially when you're almost depending on somebody to kind of to push you. I like to be pushed. I like to be told I can't do something, or we're going to go do this, and I'm like, ugh. And they're like, you can bring your bad attitude, but you're still going to do it. It's like, all right, I can get on board with that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, okay. I'm 100% in agreement that the fire service, if we don't do something pretty abrupt, it's gonna change far from what we started in. So I like the refreshing idea of the first due tactics. What are some of the things that you teach specifically for engine company stuff? You talked about the weapons.
Yeah, we do a weapon selection class. Yeah, it started out as a first due tactics, first due engine company type class, and actually where it started was, it was probably early 2000s. Sand Hills Community College. I was working at Pinehurst then, and they had come up and they said, we got all these certification classes, but we want to bring in some specialty classes. So they'd asked me would I put together like an officer level first due class. So I did, and there was people in that class from all over, and from the mountains. I went up to Blue Ridge. I went up to McDowell County and Lumberton, and teaching down here at Wilmington for a lot of years before I came here. And so it just started morphing into, the first due engine. And then, so we kind of put a twist on it over the last couple of years, and we've got the first due engine, but we started doing like specialty stuff. So right, like in January at the Cape Fear College, we're doing coastal firefighting. So we're going to focus that first due engine on what coastal firefighters are dealing with elevated structures and wind-driven fires and stuff like that. And, from there it started, morphing into some just small lectures like 4 or 5 hours versus 12. And then it got into the weapon selection and hose bundles and stretching hose bundles. And then in the last year or so, we put together a couple of things in the leadership side. And because I go to these classes and they're like, it's great, first do engine stuff, but can you do some leadership stuff, like more like how do you lead a department, or what do you think guys want to see? So we did some front yard leadership, and it was more how am I a chief or a battalion chief or even a captain on a rural department? I'm responding in, and I don't know who all's coming in. There might be some automatic aid companies, and I don't know who's on them. And how do I pull up in the front yard and start running this fire scene with a mixed bag of knowledge? And then the latest that we talked about earlier was mission-driven leadership, and it got more into the motivational side and doing a lot of Jocko stuff and things like that, like some clips, and just talking about, how can you be motivated as a leader to bring the young firemen and even the seasoned firemen. How do you motivate them to want to be in this job? And it's literally just getting into motivational stuff to say, how far are you pushing yourself? And a lot of it stems on what we talked about, like, what's your passion? If I asked you what the score of 5 football games were today, you probably rattle them off. But if I said, what's the friction loss on that 1 3/4, you couldn't tell me. So are you really motivated in this job that you want to do? And you know what? Knowing the score of a football game or knowing, what fish are biting today don't bring you home alive. This job will kill you, and you don't know anything more about it than what you've come to shift to do. But you can tell me what fish are biting, or you can tell me when the rut started, or, And right. I joke about that a little bit because I fish and I hunt and I love all that stuff. I'm not against it. I just did a hunting trip with my family and I love it, but it don't save my life. And I put my value into what will bring me home. And now as a chief, I put my value into what will bring my staff home. So, that's what's drove First Due Tactics. And, it started with, I had 20-some years in the fire service, and I probably was in a lull like most people get. Like I was a little down, and I wasn't happy where the culture was going to fire service. And my son, he's 23 now, but he was 18 and got pumped up in the fire service, and we're doing burns together. And, man, he brought an energy to me I hadn't had in years. And, you know, and I felt like I said, you know, I owe this to my son to make this fire service better. And he's all about it. And, you know, it's like I told him, you're going to have people that's going to hate you. You're going to have people that's going to love you. And trust me, the guys that love you, they into this job. And the guys that hate you is that guy that, like you said, you can be lazy. It's easy to be lazy in this job. But the guy that wants to lay around all day on Saturday versus go out in the bay and do something, that's probably not the guy that's going to bring you home if it hits the fan. So
I met your son on that live burn. It was a 2-3-story brick, had that basement, the drive-in, like a walkout basement right on Carolina Beach Road. Didn't you come to that?
Yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, of course. But
Yeah.
you came up and you were on the instructor crew with us.
Yeah,
for
yeah.
that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a big house.
It was a big
It was
house.
fun though.
Mhm.
Yeah. I don't specifically remember meeting your son.
Yeah, he was with a stud group of boys. It was,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I let them KB boys come up. He ran with he was with us voluntarily. He was doing his 2-year degree at Cape Fear, and they hired him at KB knowing, you know, he's in his 2-year degree. And now he's back home. He's working for Pine Cross Edgefield. And actually, their chief had me up, and kudos to those guys. They're great guys. I come up and did a little officer development thing, some mission-driven stuff with them and their officers and battalion chiefs, and 4 or 5 station department, just good little department that are outside of Greensboro. And so he loves it. He's into the job, and sometimes I'm like, man, I can hang my hat up now. He's there. That was my passion.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I enjoyed. I burned with those guys. Went in with them. Speaking of that, like motivation. So, for me, about twice a year, I'll go through like a funk. You know, like maybe I didn't train for a couple of weeks or something. Do you have advice for re-finding the passion, or is it just expected that you know you're going to have cycles?
Yeah, peaks and valleys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, man, I tell you what, I wish I could, because I hit them too. I get frustrated, and you know, sometimes I get frustrated. I think the guys know I take it out on them or whatever, but I don't know. I wish I could answer that 100% legit, because my whole career has been ups and downs, and you know, sometimes you get some bad calls, and then you get in a low, and you know, you might have made a few mistakes on the fire, and you're like, man, am I just losing it? It's not where I'm at, and then you catch a good fire, and you're on a high, and you know, it's all over the board. And I think that's what makes this job interesting, is that you never stop pushing. So actually, sometimes it's good for me to get in a little low, because when I come out of that low, I'm energized and I'm fired up, and I just want to go at it 100%. So I think sometimes your body needs that break.
Yeah, just embrace the cycle.
Yeah. I like to say you're 100% in this job all the time. You can't be. This job burn you out. And it will. It's an emotional drain, and balancing family life. You know, sometimes when you're 100%, your family's like, hey, what about us?
Right.
And then you're like, oh, okay. And you spend time with family, and then you're like, oh, I'm neglecting my job. So it's tough. I wish I could answer that. I'd probably be a millionaire. I could write a book on
Right.
that.
Yeah. Achieving that balance. Good gosh.
Mm-hmm.
I've spent 15 years almost now trying to achieve that balance, the 100%. I'm with you. So when I figure it out, I'll get with you. We'll pitch the idea.
Yeah.
We'll all write
Knock
a book.
that book down. Yeah.
We'll all write a book about it. Yeah, that's tough. I want to talk to you about technology and how technology is presented in the fire service now. It's in everything. It's in our fire apparatus, but more importantly, since your passion is training, I want to talk about technology and training. These computer labs and simulation things, as far as fireground stuff goes. Sure, it has a place. Sure. I think we can all agree on it has a place. But it seems to be becoming more convenient just to do computer-based training versus getting out there. I've heard a lot of different things. They view it from a safety standpoint. They view it from a money standpoint. All kinds of different things. What's your thought process on that?
Man, that's a tough one because I struggle. I see technology making the fire service so much better, and what I mean by that is, like, I wish we'd have had the sim labs for officers that we have now, because I never got that. It was, as a matter of fact, it was a running joke. Like, I was a driver and I got made, and we joked, like, the officer ferry showed up one night, waved to one, because you didn't do step ups. I drove. You wouldn't allow to sit in that seat. Like, if something happened, we were taking the engine to the shop. The fireman rode in the back. That officer seat be empty. Like, nobody, you can't sit there. It's not allowed. And so the ferry showed up, waved to one overhead, and we became a company officer overnight. And it was trial by fire. And in today's world, we're doing step ups. You're a driver and you're riding officer and officer's off, and we got sim labs, and you're in there doing, a lot of, like, they put all this computer stuff on the board and mock fires, and you're talking through it, and that's amazing. I wish I'd have had that. But you can't put that on a fire ground. And I think where we're messing up is, I won't say that LPE gas is a bad live burn props, because we used them a lot in the past, but we used them with combination of real smoke, and we would flash stuff and make it, or simulated flash. But some of these just LP gas burn props, or even now, they got these simulators where you put a mask on and you got a fake water hose and you're supposedly fighting fire, I guess. It's a blue-collar job. If you're not out there sweating and banging with an axe on something, you can't simulate ventilation. And even if it's not smoke and fire underneath you, just climbing on a roof and getting that feeling of where you're at and cutting a roof and doing searches in a true building where we're simulating a lot of stuff now. And yeah, that side there, I hope the fire service don't embrace it. And I've heard the argument that some of these bigger cities can save so much money by doing virtual stuff and have virtual hand lines. But, we've all seen the virtual fire extinguisher problem. That's not putting out a fire. And if you're showing citizens that, they have no clue when they get a real fire. Mm-hmm. A little bit of heat in their face, and they don't know what they're dealing with. So I hope we don't get to that level that firefighters don't know what heat is till they get in the field, because they're going to get a rude awakening.
Yeah, I feel like that's almost part of the criteria for saying you want to do this job is feeling that a little bit. I've watched it decide a lot of careers for folks over the years of doing live burns. They decide that they're just not into that, which is fine. My wife's a great example of it. She was on a volunteer department for years before me and her ever got together, but she could absolutely care less about the fire side of things. She enjoyed the rescue side of things, the medical calls, that sort of thing. Kind of the polar opposite of what I am, right. Which is probably why we get along so good. But yeah, she was like, yeah, that didn't do it for me. And I was like, oh, you're crazy. Yeah. Something's wrong with you. Yeah. That real experience is. I'll give you an example. You weren't there for the last live burn we did in Duplin County, but we burned an old. It was an old Vidant hospital building, and it was really just a modular unit. It had a flat top or a flat roof construction with a little breezeway, nothing to it, and we laddered one side of it. I was on the outside crew at that point. There was Brandon and those boys were inside doing their thing, and a group of guys on the backup line, they were like, "Can we put the ladder up on this building?" I was like, "Yes," and they were like, "Okay," and so they put the ladder up on it. And I was like, "Okay, why don't you grab your hook and go up there and start sounding?" I said, "Have you ever sounded a roof?" Just in training, I was like, "Well, do you know what a weak roof sounds like?" "No." "Do you know what a strong roof sounds like?" "Maybe." I was like, "Okay, let's go up there and stand on a ladder and start pounding and find what a weak spot sounds like." So you're not just arbitrarily getting on a roof going through motions. You know that it serves a purpose. You do that for a reason. And how do you simulate that electronically?
Yeah.
Those instincts and those knowing when you set foot on a roof that it's spongy but it's okay. Those borderline things, you can't teach that electronically. Same thing with the heat. Same thing. I mean, it's frustrating to me at times, but I'm with you on the command side of things and the company officer side of things.
I think there's some
reps.
There's some virtual side or simulated side that has its place, but if you ain't never took a door, you can't simulate taking a door, and you can't do it one time. It's repetition, and you got to do wood door, metal door, and you can't simulate that. And I think that's where the fire service is struggling. And it's like I've done a lot of firefighter 1 and 2 class. I've done some academies, and the sad part is it's like, here's a flat load, we stretch, all right, pack it up, let's do another one. They got one stretch on it, you move on to something else, or here's a forcible entry, you might pound on it for an hour or so, and like, all right, let's go take the test, and you're done. That the first time they get in real life experience, they can't get the door open because not every door is just couple of smacks and a pop. It's going to take some true work or some technique or some skill set that you only learn. And so I think that's where you see a difference in what we talked about earlier. Those firefighters want to go out in the bay and bang on the forcible entry door, or they say, hey, Cap, let's go drag some hose, or a captain says, hey, let's go drag hose, and firemen don't want to. You pull a hose 10 times, 20 times, 30 times, and the next time you pull it, it just goes apart. And so it's definitely a skill set, and it's motor skills. So it should be second nature to you, and you can't get that virtually. I mean, there's just no way to get it. So I agree.
First Do Tactics has a big conference they put on here in Carolina Beach, correct? What's kind of the purpose behind that? How did you get that started? That sounds like a daunting task.
Yes. No, it's it's funny. So I started when we started the First Do conference, I'd been to a couple of Kurt's conferences, FDIC, different things, and I was kind of in a point to, like we talked about earlier, like the fire service just needed something. And North Carolina especially, we were doing weekend schools. And not to take anything away from the community college system, but, you go there, you get your certification classes and then a handful of little miscellaneous classes. But if I went to the college and I said, hey, I want to bring Ray McCormick in, or, Kirk Igeson or whoever, Todd Edwards, just keep naming them off, they'd laugh at you. They're not, you're not going to pay this guy this kind of money to come in here and speak. And so I had done, it was probably back in 2014, somewhere in that window 13, I went to HROC, the High Rise Operation Conference, and just had a blast. I mean, I was down there, I'd been to FDIC, and I'm sitting here going, man, I'm at a hotel with all these instructors at FDIC. You might get in their class. You might see them on a big stage. You're not going to see them out hanging out in the lobby or anywhere else. So did that, did another HROC, and I think I was at Water on the Fire, and me and Kurt had kind of become, somewhat friends, I guess you could say. We talked, and sure, he talks to 100,000 people every time, and I cornered him up one day, and it was between classes, and we sit out in the lobby, and we just chatted for a minute. And I said, man, you know what? We do a lot of stuff at our Marriott, like Christmas parties, fundraisers. The manager at the Marriott's just an awesome dude. It's a small venue, but I said, what is just amazing to me is that you're able to bring these guys in, and then they're able to hang out with the students all evening. And you see them just standing out there by the pool just talking. And I said, I think I can do this at Carolina Beach, and I think North Carolina needs it, because you never heard of a Ray McCormick or Kurt or any of those guys in North Carolina. And I said, but I'm a little worried, like I've been trying to scratch on a piece of paper here, and he said, do it. Just, you're a fool if you don't go do it. I said, yeah, man, but you're looking at $20,000 or something, with contracts and people and coffee, right. And just I'm over there doing, I'm a chief, so budget's my thing, and I'm budgeting this thing out. I'm like, there's, phew, and he's like, just do it, they'll come. So I literally was texting my wife, Pensacola. I'm sitting in class. I'm like, throwing texts. I'm like, I got this idea. She's like, what is it? We're just going back and forth. She's like, you're crazy, you know. I said, we'll talk about it when I get home. When we get home. And I said, you know what? I want to book this. And while I was there, I was able to talk to some of these guys, including Kirk. And I was like, man, I don't know. They're like, just book us. And if things don't go right, we understand. Like, just see what happens. So I went to my wife. I'm like, you know what? I said, I'm going to commit us to $15,000, $20,000, and we're going to throw it out on the internet, Facebook only, I guess, see what happens.
Right.
And I threw it out. I literally threw it out. I was driving back from Virginia, from some of our good friends live up in Northern Virginia. We went up for New Year's Eve. We're riding back. We threw it out on January 1 that year, and I'd say within 6 minutes the first ticket sold. And it pretty much almost sold out the first year. And it's been an awesome adventure so far. And I tell people everything, like my pricing is a price break. So I know what it's going to cost me, and I estimate how many people is going to be there. And just like this last year, we exceeded that expectation. So what do? We go book a cruise, booze cruise or whatever you call it. And we took 100 students, and anybody wanted to go. And it only cost them $10, and they rode on the boat, and all the instructors are there, so they're hanging out with all these guys they're in class with. So what we try to do is it's not 1 ounce of it to me is a money-making adventure. It's 100% to make the fire service better. And I'll even go to the level, and I mean this with all my heart, is to make North Carolina a better fire service. And I mean that, and every year I put up a substantial amount of money to hopefully sell tickets, and people come and they enjoy it. And I think the most rewarding part of First Due Tactics to me is the emails, the messages, text messages, whatever, after the conference, people going, that is the best conference I've ever been to. I would have never got to stand there and talk to Kirk Eisen for 20 minutes, or I wouldn't have got to talk to Todd Edwards or Jonah Smith, or, and, luckily Jonah's local. So I use Jonah as he's just been a good friend from the beginning, and I use Jonah, but he's a North Carolina guy, and everybody gets to see him at the weekend schools, but they still love to come see him. But it's also the Steve Robertson and those guys that if you try to go to FDIC, you'd wait in line or couldn't get in their class, or you got in their class, it would be so spelled out that. And now Steve comes to my conference I did last year, and he hangs out in the lobby for hours just talking with students and making friends, which he loves doing that. So
sure.
It's what's motivated me to do it. So.
Well, we got one coming up, right?
Yeah. I was actually just looking. I won't tell the dates wrong if I don't look it up. We actually moved it. It used to always be the week after Memorial Day, and we bumped it up a little bit because that got to be a little bit challenging. Man, you're going to make me tell a lie. I apologize.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say it's May, but I don't know.
It's May.
I don't know the dates right offhand.
I'm just trying to make sure I tell you guys the right dates.
It's fine. And some of your keynotes this year, you've got Ray McCormick. He's coming for sure, right?
Definitely. So it's May 16th through the 18th.
16th, 17th, 18th.
Yep. So, and we do 2 days of lecture, 1 day of hands-on. And this year what we've done with the hands-on is kind of unique. So with the hands-on part, what we've done was we're doing an engine track, a truck track, and a instant command track. And we decided to do that because we had guys signing up for, I want to do, Jonah's track, or I want to do Todd's track, stretching at the boardwalk. So what we decided, because we had Ray there and Todd, Jonah, and all these good, and Anthony Rowett from Mobile, Alabama. So we had all these guys there that were just jam up guys. They're engine guys. So we're putting them all on one track. So for 8 hours, we're going to bounce you through stations. And then Mike Champo's heading up the truck track, and it's going to be all truck stuff. And then we got Mo Davis and Clyde Gordon from Houston Fire, just some of the best guys you ever meet. I don't know if you guys had a chance hearing their stuff, but they're just amazing guys. And if you keep up with Houston, man, they burn. I mean, it's nonstop burning. and they're doing instant command track. And talking with I was at Water on the Fire, and me and Clyde was just hanging out down by the pool, and those guys have the same struggles we do. They got suburban, they got residential area, they got high rise. They're all over the board, and depending on what district you're working, you could be in a ghetto, you could be in a townhome section, an apartment section, you'd be in a high rise section. I think they're going to bring a lot to the table, and so we put them in the command track, and they're just. I'm hoping that the guys that just don't want maybe to get out and drag hose, so you got your battalion chiefs and stuff coming in, they get the opportunity to sit there and hear some of these guys that are doing it in the street daily. If you watch them on Facebook, between Clyde and Mo, every shift they work, they're burning something, which is insane. But
that is so jealous.
Yeah, I know.
Time to move to Houston.
Yeah,
right.
For sure. So how do folks find the information on it? Are you sold out yet?
No, we're close. We're
You
close,
will be.
but we're not. Yeah, we definitely will. There's not a doubt. And but you can go to the www.firstdotactics.com, and you can click on it there. Or if you go on Facebook and look under First Do Tactics or Instagram, we continuously posting the links to it. Oceanfront Hotel for $139 a night. You can't beat that. I mean, the Marriott. That room's $350 that time of year. I mean, they do us an amazing job. We book out 100 some rooms, and we fill them up, and you get to come in conference room for 2 days. You're right there in the hotel that's in, and then every night's a social. So we make sure that we're doing something. This year I work off. This year we did Lazy Pirate, and everybody went to Lazy Pirate. Instructors are there all night hanging out. Cornhole tournaments, had a band going. Then the next night we did the boat and did an intercoastal cruise, and same deal. Every instructor that was there was on the cruise, hanging out, floating around the boat, just talking with people. Good Hops Brewery was a good sponsor of that. And then we do the hands-on all day, so that's good fun. Then we do a social in the lobby that night, and then let everybody go do their thing. And this year probably the same. We've been kicking around. One night maybe doing a low country brawl or something with everybody.
Okay.
So I heard a lot of guys like, man, why don't y'all do something like that? So we might end up doing a low country brawl for everybody and just make it special, because the training's great. I know it's great. You're going to meet some of the best instructors in the world. But at the end of the day, it's just hanging out afterwards.
Sure.
And my goal is to keep these 200 firemen in one circle if I can. And all they do is everybody hangs around and just talks fireman stuff and has a good time. So
Gotta love it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I'll make sure I put all those links and stuff like that in the show links as well.
Yeah.
Like I said, if you're not full, you will be soon.
Right.
So, what's your goals with First Do Tactics? Where do you want to see it go?
I didn't have a goal when I started.
That's okay.
Probably like you guys. I don't know. You guys just start out and said, hey, this is our passion, and we want to do it and see where it heads. And every time it changes, and I've actually had to slow it down a little bit. It wasn't what I expected. I joked and said, what, if I build this thing up in 5 years, I can retire. When I do retire, like 5 years from now, I might have some teaching gigs. And it turned into me just telling people I can't come do your class, or I can't come, because it turned into 2 or 3 classes a month, and I can't do that, and keep a job here.
Sure.
So it's been great, and I've kind of reeled it back into, I just did the South Carolina firefighter, the South Carolina fire chiefs. I've done stuff in Georgia and then of course Florida, and we got North Carolina fire chiefs coming in January. So I still pick and choose, try to do something every month or so. I think the end goal is to keep making that First Do. If I said I had a goal, it'd probably be to do 2 of those a year. And we started to pull, honestly, the first year I was like, man, I'm doing 2 of these. This is crazy. Sold out in 3 months. And then COVID hit the next year, and we backed off. And we've kind of rode that. And I thought this year we might try to pull 2. And I went back and forth with the hotel, and they were rebooking so many conferences. So we held off one more year. I really want to do the first do thing in the spring and then a leadership in the fall or winter. I think what North Carolina really needs now is some good, strong leadership conferences. And when I say that, it's not Alan doing it because I suck at it, but getting the key people in here around the country that everybody wants to hear, and try to motivate some of these battalion chiefs, whatever. And so that's probably, if I had to pick a goal right now, it'd be to do 2 of these a year and not have my wife leave me or nothing, or worry if we're going to be able to pay the mortgage. Or,
Sure.
Yeah.
But no, it's been a blessing because my first year I was almost willing and prepared to pull a little bit out of my wallet because I thought it was going to take that. And I said, you know what, I teach enough little weekend stuff, it'll offset if I have to pull a couple thousand or whatever. And I didn't have to, obviously, and we were able to actually put a deposit on the next conference, which was amazing. That the first year I literally had to put $3,000 up front, and to just tell the hotel I want to be here. And then all the other expenses was just good firemen saying, yeah, I'll come, and we signed a blank contract. And so, like I told her, we're at a point that when I'm ready to do 2 is when I know that I'm confident that we can put a deposit on the next one, and not have to worry about me, because it's like everything else. If I upset my family life, it's not going to be fun.
That's the truth there, brother.
Yeah. Amen.
That's the truth.
It's just, but she supports me. She's there. She takes off work and spends the week with us. She loves it, and she's been doing a lot of merchandise stuff, and we don't have a ton of stuff, but we've been doing a little bit of stuff just because firemen like to buy T-shirts and hats.
Yes, absolutely.
Hats I can't keep. I buy hats and they're gone automatically. So
It's a good problem to have.
yeah,
It is.
yeah.
Sure.
So
Sure. Well, we'll make sure we blast that out so everybody can get the opportunity to come spend the weekend with us beautiful people, mostly you. But
Yeah,
it's
no,
our hometown.
yeah, I told you guys, I'm hoping maybe we can pull some type of little podcast off while the conference is going on, and we'll see how it goes. It'd be awesome to have you guys there.
Yeah, we'd love to come, but I'll be there regardless for sure. Whether
Right.
we get any part of that
Yeah,
going,
yeah.
I'm going to come by
Right.
for sure. What about the mental health side of our job? Is that something that First Do Taxes has had any ambition to pick up?
We have it, and I don't mean it in a bad way. There's some good people doing awesome stuff out there, and I mean, just recently, without getting any details, I was on the phone with some of the peer support people and just talking to them, because as a chief, you get firemen come up to you, and not just my firemen. I've got firemen I've met over the years call me and say, man, I'm struggling with this, or friends I've had from while I was on the job back in years ago call me and say, hey, I'm going through a divorce, or I'm going through this, and it's the nature of this beast. And so I've been very fortunate that I've made good friends, and I know you guys have had some awesome people on this show, and I wouldn't take an ounce from them. And if First Do Tactics could do anything, is we could always, and I say First Do Tactics, like if you need a friend, call me, and we'll talk. And I've taught many people off a ledge, and I say a ledge not in a bad way, just whether it's I'm done with this job, or I'm done with life, or I'm done with my marriage. And, this is a tough gig, and it's going to drag you through some lows, no matter whether it's calls or whether it's just your family. Some families can't support this job. So I've been blessed to meet some good people, and that North Carolina Peer Support Group's just off the chain. And I directed several people to them. And the North Carolina Firemen Association, they've got some EAP stuff, and we try to make sure we just spread those numbers. And I would probably belittle the cause if I got in the middle of it trying
Sure.
to help with it. But
I'm with you. Yeah, it seems to be the mental health, or I like to coin it mental hygiene. I think that part's more important than the upkeep and kind of the precursors, trying to head things off before they get to that point is a part of the process that we're missing. But it's getting more prevalent in our service for sure, and I don't know that it's going to get better yet.
no, and I think what I have seen, I tell you, people are more out to talk about it now than they ever have. We would have never had these conversations 15, 20 years ago. Matter of fact, you'd not got picked on, but you wouldn't have done it because you thought people thought you were weak. And now I do see more firefighters opening up and talking about actual problems, and it's, to me, that's a huge step forward than where we were at, because so many of us bottled it up for years, and now it's, so, and I say bottle it up, our way of dealing with it was making crude jokes or almost off playing a tragic thing we saw or a death or, whatever. So I do see that side of the fire service has changed where we talk about it. Not as much as we should. And, but, just to see the North Carolina peer group and some of these programs that's kicked off, and I wish I had it in front of me right now, but Florida, there's a lady that created a whole app, and Kirk shared it last conference. I got it on my phone, and you can just go on the app and do all these different things. And we're just, as a fire service, we're learning that it's okay to talk about it, and because you're gonna have some tough times, and we saw it here. During, was it Florence when Wilmington had a tree fall on the house? At Florence?
Sure. Yeah, that was
Matthews,
Florence. No, that was Florence.
Florence,
sure.
yeah. And you see that happen, but you see how those guys came together, man. They just got in a big circle, and that's what the fire service has always been good for, is we comfort each other, and we'll bow our head and say a prayer real quick. And so if we ever lose that touch, that's where we got problems.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
You want to ask the magic wand question tonight?
No, you're real good at it. Yep.
So if you had a magic wand and you could wave it and turn the fire service into Chief Alan Griffin's fire service, what would that look like?
It'd be a horrible fire service.
It doesn't have to be broad. You can be.
I can sum it up in 2 words: default aggressive.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know how else to say it. It's got me through my career, and everybody can, not everybody, but people can buck it. People can say you can get people hurt or killed. I've been hurt in the fire. I spent 3-4 months out from a roof collapse, and so I can sit here and say I'm not bragging about it. I'm just saying I know what it's like to be in too far, too long, and should have pulled out, look back, coulda, shoulda, woulda. And but I can tell you 100% that we've saved more injuries by defaulting aggressive than we have being not aggressive. So if the fire service can do anything, we got the best gear we've ever had. We got the best air packs we ever had, the best nozzles we've ever had. We were flowing 95 gallons a minute I got on, right?
Trucks.
I mean 125 gallons if you had a new nozzle, adjustable gallons. So, engines. I mean, it's just trucks. The fire service has got more. We're better equipped than we've ever been. I mean, we were riding around in 30-year-old trucks back in the day, and homemade tankers, and we defaulted aggressive then, and nobody got hurt. And the only time you get hurt is if I took me and threw me into a special forces role and threw me over in a foreign country, I'd die the first round. And if you take a firefighter and you don't train them and you throw them into the wrong environment, they're going to die the first round. So you got to default aggressive, but you got to train aggressive. And if you want me to wave a magic wand, I wish everybody would just be smartly aggressive and do their job. And I guarantee you we'd have less property loss and less firefighter injuries all day long.
Got me.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
That's a great answer.
Yeah.
Great answer. Chief Griffin, it's been a pleasure, man. Absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, no, thank you guys. It's been a blast. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. All right.
Yeah, good
Ready
times.
to wrap it up? All right.
Shut her down.
Take care. What's up, gang? It's Matt from Primary Complete. We've been getting a lot of questions from folks wanting to know how they can support the show. Honestly, it's crazy to us that people are even interested in this. But to answer the question, there are several ways. The biggest way is whatever platform you choose to listen to the show, rate it and leave a comment. The more 5-star ratings we get and comments we get, the more our show is exposed on these platforms. Another is just talking to your friends. If you're sitting at the firehouse kitchen table and somebody shares a situation or something they're going through, and you can remember a guest that we had or a past episode they may benefit from hearing, just suggest it to them. Lastly, if you feel so inclined, there's a donation link on the Primary Complete podcast website. We can't possibly say thank you enough for all the love and support that you have sent our way. It's humbling to say the least, and we are continually grateful.